Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our event, Agroecological Food Production in Urban and Peri-Urban Areas. My name is Melissa Gordon-D. Novak, and I am Learning Analyst and Knowledge Generation in UNDP. This is webinar 29 of the SDG Local Solution Series, an UNDP initiative that wants to show how the local and regional governments are leading the implementation of the 2030 Agenda with local, concrete, specific solutions. You can see the prior webinars in our YouTube channel in the website, and I will share that very shortly on the chat. Some methodological aspects. We have simultaneous interpretation into English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. You have to click a small word that is located in the bottom part to the right, and there you can select your language. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, to send questions, to share your own experiences from your local governments. And with these methodological suggestions, I will introduce our panelists. We will have distinguished panelists. On the one side, Darlene Rodriguez, who is the Municipal Secretary of Food Security and Nutrition of the Municipality of Belo Horizonte in Brazil. On the other side, we have the participation of Raúl Tarrile, who is the coordinator of the food program of the Secretariat for Economic Development and Employment from the Rosario municipality in Argentina. And finally, our moderator, Bruno Lana, who is Officer of Economic Affairs of the Division of Sustainable Development and Human and Urban Settlements of ECLAC. Thank you, everybody, for being with us in this session, and hopefully it will be an inspiring session. Welcome, Bruno. You have the floor. Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you, UNDP, for this invitation to participate as a moderator in this important event. As Melissa has said, I am from the Human Settlement Unit of ECLAC that works on urban topics. And this topic about food agroecological production in urban and peri-urban areas is an increasingly relevant topic for more inclusive, resilient cities. Why? I'm sorry, there was a menu there. Because we have really worked in ECLAC on topics related to the vacant soil in cities or idle soil. Because the way the vacant soil is located, that represents negative externalities, degradation, losses of economic opportunities, and a less sustainable, more dispersed, less integrated human growth. And there's different alternatives that we are working on in ECLAC related to urban reoccupation with the perspective of the circular economy, among other topics that you can find in the urban platform of ECLAC. But the agroecology and urban food production is very interesting, and we will see the experiences of the cities to show how to use a vacant soil, an idle soil. I wanted to mention before starting with the presentations that agroecology is very much related to the SDGs. At least I found 6 that have a strong connection. SDG 2, zero hunger, of course, 10 in terms of reduction of inequalities, 11 sustainable cities and communities, 12 about production and responsible consumption, 13th climate action, and 15th that refers to the life of land ecosystems. So these are actions that truly have a strong impact on the quality of life, on the sustainability of the urban environment. And here we have the experiences of Rosario from Argentina, presented by Raúl Terrini, the coordinator of the food program of the Secretariat for Economic Development and Employment from the municipality of Rosario, and Belo Horizonte. We have Ms. Rodriguez, who is the Secretary of Environmental Security and Nutrition. To start, I want to give the floor to Raúl to share the experience of Rosario. Raúl, you have 10 to 12 minutes for your presentation, and upon the end, I will be sending a message to you. Raúl Tarrile. Thank you very much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to share our experience. So, well, I'm going to share my screen. So, I will talk about this program that we are developing on food sustainable production that typically has been called as the Rosario Green Belt. It is in the peri-urban area of the city. We will talk about that. And Bruno already identified some SDGs, apart from the ones that we put it here in the presentation. The ones that we want to cover with this program: 2, about zero hunger; 11, about sustainable communities and cities; 13, climate action. And I believe that also the 12th, 10th, that also were impacted. So from here in Rosario, we tried to make a contribution to create more resilient cities. And this program has been distinguished by the WRAI Foundation and the Milan Pact. So this program has been developed on urban agriculture and peri-urban agriculture. And since the year 2002, we have been incorporating agroecology as a public policy in the municipality. This program is implemented jointly with several secretariats, somehow complying with the principles of agroecology, which is the comprehensive work in such a way that we work together with several secretariats. The goals have to do with addressing social, environmental, and productive topics. For example, promoting the sustainable production of food. This is a program set forth so that we accompany the farmers in the ecological transition. It contributes to the resilience of the cities, providing environmental services, considering all the implications that are considered by incorporating the green methodologies for the cities. And also the social perspective. The idea is to make a contribution to improve the social and economic situations of producing families, and also access to healthy food that allows the families to enjoy healthy food. An important topic in this work that we have done for so many years is to identify vacant soil for urban and peri-urban agriculture and protect those soils for the production of food before the situation that we have been witnessing in terms of the increase of residential areas and industrial areas. So it is very important in the urban and peri-urban areas to be able to protect with legislation these soils. We see in this air picture the area that has been protected in the peri-urban area. We are talking about 650 hectares, and in the urban area here in the parks, in the urban areas also, there are certain spaces that also have been protected, which are areas certain areas. We have made a survey of the vacant soils, we have classified them, and we have identified these spaces as areas that where construction cannot be carried out. These are certain spaces next to the avenues. Okay, can you follow me? As I'm just you have the doubt of whether you are speaking by yourself. So here in the city areas also we have uh, we have incorporated these spaces. In the transition process also through the incorporation of agroecology as a productive practice, we seek the improvement of the soils. And this contributes to the adaptation to climate change and mitigation, because as we provide natural fertility to the soil, the carbon dioxide can be sequestered. We preserve the natural biodiversity, the green infrastructure, the heat island, as it can moderate the climate and protect the soil from extremes temperatures. It can contribute also diversity of the grown plants in the environment where this experience is considered. And also we provide environmental services to the city because as the soil is more absorbent, we can avoid the consequences of possible floodings. Also, we have considered another topic, the proximity food. In the city of Rosario, we have the problem that we depend a lot on having access to the vegetables that we need on a daily basis, but they come from many provinces that are far away, such as more than 1,000 kilometers are covered for the vegetables to reach the city. So the consideration is to produce locally, to incorporate urban, peri-urban, and regional agriculture. So this consideration, the proximity food, also makes a contribution in terms of energy saving, as to the transportation distance, and also we save because we don't have to resort to the cooling chains. Also, there are certain pilot plants, and we want to incorporate renewable energy elements in the productive spaces. For example, the installation of a solar water heating facility. We incorporate also ecological bathrooms and also the solar water pump panel. These are pilot expenses for the time being, but we are considering them in order to do this in a more gradual way. Also through agroecology, we want to reach the consumer with a differentiated product. And we've been considering this through the creation of a participatory guarantee system. We've been working with organizations, the university, and other institutions such as INTA, the the Technology Institute, in order to provide quality services to the city. We also have considered another topic, which is the circular economy. We want to have a virtuous methodology to be able to reuse certain waste of some clean industries. We've done studies with the university so that the waste can be used through compost as inputs for the production of food, promoting responsible consumption. And here we comply with another SDG through fairs and with permanent spaces where in the market you can find the stands, we can find agroecological produce so that the neighbors of Rosario can have access to this food on a daily basis.
We have been discussing about these topics, but here we see the contribution that we are estimating round about 6,000 tons of agricultural production. And we see the potential. We see producers that are working in a conventional manner, but we are making progress to a transition to agroecological produce. We have 120 hectares already with this production system. This was what I wanted to briefly share with you. I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Raul. Very thorough presentation covering different aspects of how these initiatives go about in the city. Before going into that plain presentation, I wanted you to react to Raul's presentation or ask a question to have a brief debate on what was presented. I remain here available for any questions you may have.
Yes, thank you, Bruno. Good morning, everyone. Raúl Rosario is always such an inspiration for Belo Horizonte. We are even working together, coordinating in Latin America under the Milan Pact, and we are exchange ideas often. I am always intrigued by how you managed to regulate the protection of the areas surrounding the city, ensuring that they really cannot be used for construction or development. Instead, they are directed toward protection and also toward food production. So this question of how you manage to guarantee that these areas are safeguarded for production and for sustainability. Could you explain a bit more about how you advanced in this process of regulation?
Could you understand, Raul? We what she wants to know how was the regulation of the use of the soil? How did you guarantee that that soil that it's in the outskirts of the city continues working for produce and it's not applied to other purposes? First of all, we have worked in different areas. In an urban area, we have had in 2003 a survey of vacant soil for urban agriculture. The university typified the different properties and uses. That is to say, we had a survey of vacant plots that were had a minimum surface for this purpose, 1,000 square meters. This was incorporated to the city, and we had the figure of produce parks. These spaces have a multifunctional purpose and use of soil and were incorporated by means of regulation to our territorial land use. And in the peri-urban area, we have passed a regulation. The last one was in 2020. We had regulation 10,139 that has to do with agricultural use of soil, productive soil. The soil is mapped together with the different uses and what type of soil is to be used for residential purposes and what is to be used for primary production. This way, we safeguard with this regulation the use of soil that will be kept for food production, unless at the level of the council of the city, there is an exception presented or introduced to this regulation. But we believe it's very important to have a regulation of these areas, and it's not up to the will of the ruling party at the moment. Perfect. Thank you very much. There are several issues that had to do with your intervention, but we will leave that to the end of the webinar. Now, we will continue with Belo Horizonte's presentation, presented by Daclane Rodriguez, the Secretary of Food Security of the city. Daclane.
Good morning, Bruno. Can you hear me well? Is my audio all right? Yeah. I would like to ask Bruno to share my presentation. I am going to be speaking about how we have urban agriculture in Belo Horizonte, comparing to conventional topics. We seek, the conventional system seeks to bring food from afar. Belo Horizonte has over 1 million residents. It's a capital of the state of Minas Gerais. And uses rural areas for producing food. So in fact, we depend. Can we ask you to speak a little bit louder because the interpreters are having a hard time hearing you? Is it better now? Sure. Fine. Can you share my presentation, Bruno? Belo Horizonte has a city law regulating agriculture, urban agriculture. This city law brings a concept of a healthy, sustainable, and circular food system. At the same time, we actually use this legislation in order to guide our actions. In the sense, this is seeking to produce food in urban areas, especially in more vulnerable areas of our city. Well, this is the food cycle according to the city legislation. This cycle covers food production all the way to composting, and it covers economic and environmental aspects related to logistics. These areas produce greens and vegetables, and also foster urban forests. So we have parks. These food spaces will end up with composting activities. All the surplus is then traded in markets, fostering income, as well as healthy food for vulnerable households that live around the producing areas. And also, we extend this to other areas of the city through agricultural trade markets or free markets. We also have a food bank connecting large companies, large producers, owners of supermarkets and food stores. So the surplus of these companies is then donated, and then we channel the food to entities working with vulnerable families as well. Then everything ends up in composting, and then the composting produced goes back to the plantation areas, therefore making sure there is a circular economy around the system. So the strategy has as elements food production in vacant areas or underused areas in the cities. Make sure that people have access to food. Most vulnerable people have priority access. There is generation of income to the families involved. We stick to sustainable ecological principles. In addition, there is community dialogue, the rights connected to the city, all the principles that guide dialogue with the community, and this leads to food sovereignty and fostering indigenous people dialogue. All based on the city law as well as national law, with priority target groups having access to the system, also trading classical, typical foods, local foods. So here we have the producing units. These are spaces destined to planting food, and there is a consortium for producing greens and vegetables, everything based on sustainability, as well as models connected to composting. We have also other units where we bring sustainability dialogue to schools, where children are taught to think about sustainability with a more comprehensive model on the way we occupy urban spaces. Here is the detail on how we execute the actions in the city. Very often we interact with other cities. We use indicators of sustainable cities and the benefits on microclimate, as well as technology to fight climate change, use of public spaces, vulnerable spaces, in order to guarantee food security to the population. But very often we come out of these conversations and people ask, how do you execute these actions within the city? So that's why I decided to detail this. We have a city law that guides the use of the space for urban agriculture. And we detail how this is to be executed in the city. So we call citizens for dialogue, and we call it the registration process. And then we ask citizens if they have identified areas that could be used for the action. After we have asked citizens, then we move on to the process of approval of these areas. And then we invite citizens to become producers, men and women producers. And then we start a process of technical training for all citizens that have the interest in producing food so that they can get to know about how to produce food and all the principles around agroecology. This lasts about 6 to 8 months, and those citizens who have the interest of producing food in actual agroecological producers and multipliers of city ecology. So they become producers, they receive support from the city authorities to build a social group, as well as support for technical training, as well as for this space infrastructure. We're talking about technical assistance, we're talking about fertilizers, seedlings. We're talking about providing conditions so that the families can produce food and become trained in agroecology within the city. So the city stays with the groups to make sure that the producing areas will remain producing sustainable food, increasing food security, and trading the result of the producing units, making sure there's income generation. It's important to say that we're not involved in rural areas or peri-urban areas. We are concentrated in Belo Horizonte. So the areas available for food production are smaller within vulnerable areas in the city, but that generate impact on the producers. Out of the 59 areas, 10 of them are considered to be urban forests, combining food production with forest planting, fruit trees, having an impact on the climate of the city. We have 170 institutional producing units with 141,000 square meters producing agroecological food inside the city. Here is the map, so you can see the footprint of the distribution areas and where they are in the city. It's important to say that we have decentralized system. All the regions have a unit. If you go to Belo Horizonte, you will not have a continuous area. You will have various separated units between 2 to 5,000 square meters, making sure that the system is entirely decentralized. Obviously, to have producing areas in the city, Belo Horizonte, in the 30 years of this policy, has accumulated knowledge, integrating with civil society, universities, and various movements to support food production. We are building a native Creole seed bank. We make sure that pruning, shredded pruning, goes back to the producing units as fertilizer. We also produce input. There is a biofactory for biofertilizing producing areas. We also have the organic waste, environmental education, agroecological center for the city, making sure organic waste is well channeled. We are one of the cities that most recycle solid waste, and we want to do the same with organic waste. We have a seedling production center to make sure that these areas continue to produce food for the city. We have private sector support. We have an urban farm producing, which is called the Be Green. And we also have agroecological experience centers. We have 4 of these. These are spaces where we test out food production. We have food producing model spaces so that we can be an ecological capital. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I would like to wrap up by thanking Melissa and UNDP for the invitation and Bruno for holding this resilience dialogue in order to have an inclusive occupation of the city so that Belo Horizonte and Rosario may be inspirational cities for other people and cities not only in Brazil but around the world. Thank you so much.
I am from Belo Horizonte as well. Raúl, I would like to know if you have a question, comment, or reaction to Darlene's presentation for exchanging ideas. Let us know. Hello. Yes, first of all, let me congratulate her for her presentation. We have been following up Belo Horizonte for years, and we know how much this city grew as for urban agriculture. I'm very much interested in training. I believe that is essential. I would like if you to hear if you can tell us about how do you do this method, the training, if you do it on the terrain, on the land, if you have a technical team from the municipality to carry out this activity. I believe that this is essential, essential training in agroecology.
Well, thank you, Raul, for the question. Training is an important part of our work. We think of the producing spaces, but for having food production areas, it is essential that cities invest in training and technical assistance. We don't have a single model. We have complementary models. When we start implementing a unit, we invest in on-site training through technical assistance in the field. We have our own team to implement the producing unit together with society. And this training process happens in each one of the spaces and lasts between 6 to 8 months. But it is integrated with the community. We also hire training institutions that complement with complementary topics for business plans so that the community can better use surplus, understand production costs, where they're going to sell the production, if it's going to be at the market or locally. We also have universities. For example, the Federal University of Minas Gerais is one of our great partners, contributing with training programs connected with the agroecologic system, anti-racist activities, gender issues, the role of women in this. And we have two other types of training, not necessarily targeting farmers. It's geared towards a dialogue with the city. It's important to train farmers or producers, but it's also important to have a dialogue with the citizens to talk about a city that's going to be resilient. Even if this citizen doesn't become a producer. So we have a nutrition and food security center that has agroecology training course. And we have 2 on-site classrooms and 2 remote classrooms a year. So we have a dialogue with citizens of Belo Horizonte, Metropolitan Belo Horizonte, as well as other cities in the Minas Gerais states. And we also have a training for ambassadors of agroecology. We have also a model from producer to producer, and agroecology knowledge is shared by people who have become a reference in the field. So these are complementary training programs to produce food, to dialogue with the city. And this is how we have extended our training actions for this topic in the city of Belo Horizonte.
Now we will have some questions that we received on the chat so that you can react. I start with Raul. I'm going to make 2 or 3 questions at once so that you can take 3, 4 minutes and then we continue. First, what concrete transformation have you observed in terms of environmental and social resilience since the implementation of the program? Second, as the participatory guarantee system and the proximity market have strengthened the relationship between producers and consumers? And the third question that comes from the ECLAC agenda, the regulation in terms of the soil use. Was there any kind of resistance from the owners? How has been the process like? Uh, Did the people accept that that soil is classified for that kind of use and not another one that could be more profitable? Thank you. Well, first of all, let's see if I can remember the first question has to do with the resilience. Well, I believe that it's been quite remarkable after 20 years. We've been working for 25 years. It started since the 90s, the incorporation of agroecology in the city. And the fact that there are fixed spaces, because in the past it happened that there were certain vegetable gardens, but then the urban sprawl changed them. That is, the growth of the urban area would sweep the vegetable gardens. But what was incorporated to the urban planning, partial and general actions, we incorporated the green infrastructure concept, and these spaces are permanent. So I believe that it is important to maintain those spaces, and we are seeing a very important urban growth process in Rosario, and we have to defend these spaces so that this trend continues. And it is remarkable the fact that research has been conducted in terms of the contribution of urban and peri-urban agriculture in the moderation of climate change. And we have data in terms of temperature differences in the areas that are mixed with green spaces that are quite significant. So this was incorporated already last week. In fact, in Rosario, we had an event. It was the Climate Week, and these kind of practices have been highlighted and stood out. In terms of the marketing, the trading of products, it is quite dynamic. And on a daily basis in the city, we have a fair. On a daily basis, we have fairs. And also the fact that we have move forward to permanent marketing spaces, that's very important. We have two markets where there is a direct relationship between the producer and the consumer, and these marketing spaces are managed by cooperatives. And there is a trading, marketing space that is called patio market, and this agroecological produce market is managed by women's organizations, and there is a very direct bond between the producers, the consumers, and the organizations. And the participatory guarantee system also comes to contribute to a relationship with the institutions and organizations that seek a collective construction. And this is very important so that the access to healthy food uh, really occurs and is um, taken as something that belongs to people directly, because this has stayed beyond the political changes of the city. This is something that has been incorporated to the daily life. I mean, the fairs and the access to agroecological food. And I don't remember very much the last question, but it referred to the use of the soil, right? Yes. And yes, it's not easy. There is a resistance. The biggest resistance comes from um, making compatible with the industrial areas. In the urban and peri-urban areas, we coexist with the industrial sections areas, and there is a fight for the soil, but also there is an agreement between the two parts. And it also has to do with the policy of the city and the also the legislative planning council in terms of maintaining as a public policy these spaces and also implementing the territorial planning plan, not only in the city of Rosario, but also in the metropolitan areas, because lately I believe that in all the metropolitan areas, we have gated neighborhoods that sometimes push forward and advance on the primary production soil. So it is very important to strengthen the urban and peri-urban food production areas because of the provision of proximity food and the environmental services also that they provide in building the resilience of the cities and the region so that we can maintain more livable cities, so that we don't have cement everywhere, so that we can have biodiversity and environmental services that we've been announcing and also were announced by our partner from Belo Horizonte, which is contributing to making cities be livable and uh, to protect ourselves from the flooding risk that can happen, and having the absorbing soil reduces the risk, also the moderation of the climate. So there are a myriad of services that are provided by these practices that not only means that we are not just selling a product as an agroecological product, but we are offering the community environmental services. Perfect. Thank you very much. Now I move on to Darklan, uh, and I'm going to ask the
I
questions
will make all the
in
questions in
Portuguese.
English.
Uh,
Okay, so there's a similar question, how that program contributed to the food safety, especially in the generation of income. There are people that, are there any people that do have that as a main source of income? Did you experience this impact in your communities? And what is the role of that seedlings bank and in the sustainability of this policy in time? And there's another question, because we are running out of time, but we understood that everything is being conducted in public areas. Is this something that will go on temporarily, or what's the provision that you have, or what are the plans that you have for the use of soil in this program? Thank you, Bruno. Thank you for your questions. This is very specific of our current situation of the urban areas of our municipality. Well, how this program contributes to the generation here in terms of food safety. We produce food, and this is the core of our program. And the goal is to improve the food intake of these families. We understand that the production of food is at a low scale. In the long term, we seek to have a greater food production. So we are trying to grant the possibility of a better access to food, or an access to better sources of food of these people, and how this local production generates income for these local communities. So this is a collective reality that we have in our municipality, and we understand that this is a decision that families make collectively to use these spaces in these areas, and this generated great interest for food production. This local production really improves the quality of food in these families, and they can produce their own food and use their own money to go and buy, for example, medicines or other products that they really need. And this is a possibility that they have to produce income. So we design a food plan for everybody in these communities, and we see that they are becoming entrepreneurs, and they have the possibility of starting to use their own soil as a source of income, as an entrepreneurship, and they can collect their own food and sell them to their communities and take food or a source of income to their families, and they become really happy people by doing this. They can also trade their production in the local markets in their communities. So there are specific areas in Belo Horizonte where we are trying to incorporate these new habits and help create communities there. And we can help them, for example, to get to those areas, and we help them with the bus tickets, for example, so that they can access these markets because they are the most vulnerable people there. And so we are trying to encourage them in this sense. And we are also taking these proceedings to the local schools so that they can use this locally sourced food in those schools, so that the growers can start working also with schools. They can trade their products with the local schools. And school opens up their doors to these local growers so that they can be integrated into the school environment, into the school community. And Belo Horizonte also has an incentive program for growers so that they can register in the federal program. That's it's a local regulation that allows them to be registered, as it happens in other countries. So the local municipality can directly buy from those growers or help them with the registration process so that they can become vendors in other shops. So this is how the grower as an entrepreneur can access this market. So this is a great opportunity for them and their families. So yes, we do have data that support the growth of these families and these communities that can actually find a source of income in this practice. And these are growers with a complementary income. This is how we can classify them, because these agricultural practices complement their main source of income. Okay, thank you, Bruno. Wonderful, thank you. It was very clear, Darklani.
Now we will have to stop here, although there are some other topics that we could discuss that are on the chat. But we
wanted to register
say
because we
here
just had
that
1
we're going to
hour.
take the questions that were not
We understand
answered,
that
and we
there are
will
several
share
questions that
materials,
were
article
not
news after the
answered,
end
so
of the
we are
webinar.
gonna
So to conclude, first of all, I
respond
want to
later
thank
via
the
email. So I
participation
wanted
of
to
Raúl and the
thank you all
clan
for your
who participated in
participation.
two
We really
cases
wanted
that
to
generate a
introduce
lot of
these two
interest
cases
because
from
they are
Rosario
a
and Belo
source of
Horizonte because
reference.
they
They
are
are applying
very
lots of
clear
results,
examples of
and
what
they
we can
give us
do and how
practical
we can
results
put
for
it
those
into
who are
practice,
trying to implement
thinking
this in
specifically
their cities. I
into
want
these
to thank
new
Melissa,
situations. We wanted to
UNDP,
thank
for the
Melissa from
invitation
the
for ECLAC to
UNDP and
participate,
for
and I
bringing
believe that
interpretation.
it's evident how a
We
policy like this
understand
has so many aspects that have to do with integration, soil, legislation, resilience, climate change. There's so many fronts, and in every aspect that we delved, we'll talk about legislation with Raúl, generation of income with the client, and different methodologies, different approaches. It's a very interesting and complex topic that generates results and really attracts our attention. So I conclude this panel. I want to thank very much the participation of all that attended the session and make questions. And we are going to be in touch through the NDP network that supports this project and to continue talking about more sustainable cities. Thank you.